Action.
Hey, what's up? I'm Patrick Epino, and you just watched uh, This Is Your Laugh. I'm here with the filmmakers. Chris Hollstein is the producer, director, editor, and for lack of a better term that he prefers, he's in it a lot. um, and Juli Lopez, who was the camera operator and sound recordist for This Is Your Laugh. How are you guys?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Patrick. Good to see you again.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to see you guys. I haven't seen you guys in a while. And to be honest, Chris, like watching the doc, which I enjoyed a lot, the first thing I noticed was something I kind of commented on was how many hairstyles did you go through? And I get it technically, because trust me, I have issues with my hair being called a style. But because technically it could be, you could consider it one style, but like 15 different lengths.
Right.
So,
Well, one of the little secrets of the film is that I intentionally cut my hair short right before we started filming, and then I just let it grow for the whole period, and now it's continued growing. But so there's this little thing where if you are confused about where we are in time in the film, look at my hair, because my hair will tell you whether it's early on or late.
Okay. So I found this doc super interesting because I know you. I know both of you, but Chris, I've known you since I was well, I don't think I knew you, but I was a graduate student in the film program getting my MFA at SF State, and you were an undergrad.
That's right.
I don't think we ever spoke. I don't think you were ever one of my students, but I remember you because I just remembered you, you know?
Yeah. Because your group and my group used to hang out very close in front of the fine arts
purple stage.
The purple stage. Purple stage that they removed.
Yeah, and we were like older.
Well, yeah, you were the cool kids because you guys were like just sitting there smoking.
Yeah.
And I would try to be upwind.
And then fast forward a couple years later when I came up for CamFest for Awesome Asian Bad Guys, and thank you for wearing that shirt. That was awesome. You picked me up from the airport, and I was like, hey, I know you.
I know. I think when I saw you on the camera, I was like, do I know this guy? I think he looks familiar.
And then fast forward a couple more years, and you were the first AD on HP Mendoza's Melon. Juli was the cinematographer, and so I found this fascinating. Like my first question is, is it from like after? So I don't mean to use Bitter Melon as a frame of reference, but like it was after that period. And then,
yeah, we shot Bitter Melon. Bitter Melon was we all made it. 2016, 2017? 17. And then so my film, I immediately after that, I was kind of, I obviously met Juli, and I was just like, I want to make this film, but I need at least one other person to make it, right? So Juli, came from a documentary background, and so we talked for a little bit in the months leading up to that, I think over the winter, and then it was spring where we kind of just pulled the trigger and said, hey, I'm gonna do this mic, like, can you come and shoot it, and we'll get going from there.
Right.
So we started shooting. It was April, I think, April of 2018.
What was the reason? Like, why did you decide to do this? Right? Like, why? Like, is this something you'd been thinking about for a while? Like, which came first? Like, I'm gonna get back into comedy, or was it like I'm gonna get back into comedy and document it, or I want to make myself a star? And
I mean, it was multiple things, right? It was an opportunity for, it was an opportunity to scratch the itch of like, can I be a comedian? Because I do feel like for a lot of my life I was an armchair comedian, like sitting there being like, oh, he's funny, I could do that, that looks easy, right? And I think most people do that. I think most people watch comedy and they're like, well, I could be funny, or they're the funny guy at work, and so they think they can do a comedy. But then, as people say, like, you're not a comedian until you actually go on stage and do it. And most people will never do that. So I kind of wanted to live in those shoes and occupy that space of like, what is it when you feel like maybe you could be a comedian, maybe you have potential in doing that. That to me, that sounded like a documentary I wanted to see. When it's someone who has no name, and then you get to see, they're just eating shit on stage for, years and years and years. Like that's not pleasant to watch. But that's kind of like where the film, I was trying to balance, like, this is entertaining, but it's also kind of almost like a David Brent kind of cringe level of like, I feel this is kind of embarrassing to watch someone just bomb on stage. And then there was the other part of that was like, yes, I am a filmmaker first, and so this was a way for me to, I really want to make a film. I'm standing by watching, a lot of my friends watch films, and there's just a tinge of like jealousy of like, why am I not making a film? Why am I not? And I know part of it was because I've been raising a family. It's kind of hard to do both.
Well, you're a dad.
Yeah. I mean,
twice.
And yeah, like I do. There's a sense of like I would like to see an Asian American on screen being represented in a way that's not normal. That's not the usual stereotypes of what you see. So there aren't movies about Asian American comedians until like last week when Steve Byrne put his film up. And his film is great, but it's a very glorified version. It's a love letter to comedy, whereas mine is not. I wouldn't call it a love, more like a stalking, threatening kind of letter.
Like I'm still here. I'm hanging.
Yeah. Don't ignore me. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Juli, what drew you to the project and working with Chris? Because again, like how often did you guys shoot? Would it be Chris would like text you, be like, hey man, I'm gigging 3 spots on Monday.
I mean, it was kind of like that. I mean, first of all, I was one of the people that really liked Chris in the
one out of how many?
In Dinner Melon, so we got along and stuff like that, and so I mean we got some rapport. So that was the beginning, I think, because if he didn't like me or I didn't like him, we probably wouldn't have done this. But because it was pretty. I mean, the first thing we shot, I think, was your house with your kid.
Yeah.
I mean, your wife was coming and going. We record your wife later, but it was jumping straight into your home, sitting down with your kid, going to the backyard. He had a tantrum, all that good stuff.
Who is this guy?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why I talked to Juli about it, because we did have a rapport on Better Than Fun, and there was definitely this need to have someone I could be comfortable with, but not feel self-conscious about what I was doing.
Right.
And I personally find Juli very easy to talk to, and I don't feel like, I think Juli's hates me or is like judging me based on what I'm doing. And he's hilarious too. So, it's like kind of easy to kind of just, talk with him and then feel like I was talking to a friend.
Yeah.
When we were filming.
And with, when our little travel and everything else, when we went to Oregon,
yeah,
it was very personal at some point, it's like, there's a lot in this movie. I mean, if you guys have seen it, you'll see there is a lot of real personal stuff that, it's a little hard to tell somebody that you don't know at all. They're sitting right next to you in a car in the middle of Oregon or whatever.
Yeah.
So no.
Well, I mean, I think in general,
cool.
It seems like for a regular documentary, the way you get to those points is you're spending days and days and days with a person to wear down their defenses so they don't feel like you're a filmmaker in their home. We didn't have that time. I mean, you couldn't be in my home weeks and weeks following me around. Nor could I go and pay you.
The good thing about him being the director and not me is that I could ask him any question I wanted. because then he would cut it out if he didn't want it,
I did.
to be shown, and he did. But that was good. It gave me complete freedom to just ask him anything, and if he felt that was something he would wanted to be part of the documentary, then he would put it. If not, no.
And was that was that the process of getting prompting Chris, or was that something that you guys kind of developed after a while? Like initially, was it Juli, were you supposed to just kind of have like questions to ask him and prompt these kind of individual thoughts? And when you were talking to, say, Chris, when you're talking to your wife or to fellow comedians, there's just conversations, or did you have kind of topics? How did all this stuff kind of come up?
You want to get it, Chris, and then I'll fill in for the rest.
I mean, I think, I don't know if it's in the film, but there's a part where Helen says like you plan too much, and when it came to like the interviews, yeah, I always had like at least like 10 topics I wanted to talk about or questions, and that's just so I had covered. So I know that we're addressing these questions I have for the film. And in terms of when it was just me and Juli, I think we would just discuss beforehand, like, we kind of need to get this. I need to be on camera talking about this aspect, or I want to talk about this thing that happened last week. So can we, I'll start with that. But I mean, there were times where I think, Juli, you understood like to either, when to push and pull and get certain information on me that I was holding back on. And I don't even, just so it felt like natural when I start discussing it, rather than just being like, hey, why do you hate yourself?
No, I mean, that's what I was going to say, pretty much, that we talked about a few points at the beginning, and then we would just let the conversation go.
Yeah.
And where I would start asking the difficult questions.
Yeah.
Whatever I could feel that you would be more open to answer them, or I got you in a soft spot or something,
Yeah.
So what, Chris, was your like, and it always shifts, right? Like if you're setting out to do something, explore something, document something.
Yeah.
But did you have like, this is what I want this film to be, or this is what I want to get out of this process for myself? What was that at the beginning? And do you feel like, you got it, or you're on the way to it, or?
Sure. I mean, I think, there's a number of things I wanted to get out of the film, out of the process. And I think it's kind of like 50-50. I obviously hope, I obviously wish that I had come out of the process a little more optimistic about being a comedian. But that being said, like I know I didn't work as hard as I possibly could have to be more successful as a comedian, and that's mostly circumstantial. Like I literally don't have time to sit and like work on jokes like during the day. And do any kind of development. And I think when Juli and I had talked before we even shot, I said like, I have this idea. I want to do this kind of bit. I want to do these kind of bits and film it and see what happens. Like, kind of do almost like a level of like performance stuff, just to see, like we talked about like building like a robot.
Putting inside,
like buying like the fortune telling machine and setting up a camera and then wiring it for audio. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put it on a street corner and see how that works. And we obviously never did that because that's just insane. And then I talked about like, oh, maybe I'll rent a space and put on my own like 30-minute comedy show at the end of a year. And then I get even halfway through the year, I was like, that is insane. I'm never going to be able to do a 30-minute set at this point. Like I don't have 30 minutes of material. I'd have to pay people to laugh. Like it would be awful. So, I mean, there were those things that were directly involved with comedy where like, I pulled back a bunch, just not having the resources and time to pull it off. And I think as a film, I wish we had been able to film more. I wish we'd be able to get more coverage and more interviews and, more diverse kind of, just make the film feel a little more diverse in terms of just the scope.
Mhm.
But we have 5-6 interviews in the film, and piecing it together, I'm like, this works as telling a story and building a sense of like, this is my experience from start to finish.
Mhm. No, and also, I mean, you got interviews with almost everybody that are professional comedians. They talked about 5 to 7 years to even start.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
nobody should even know you.
Nobody does know me.
Exactly, before 5 years, because you're gonna suck the first 5 years. You don't want anybody to cross you over because of it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was very clear off the bat with Helen, where she was just like, 7 years, and then maybe you'll actually find your voice, which is incredible. Incredible thing to like have to listen to when you're starting out. Like, oh, what am I? So I'm literally just like waiting for my turn. But that's what almost every other comedian in the world has had to do, with the exception of like Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy just came out, boom.
In terms of your personal reasons for making the film and those goals as well, do you feel like you've kind of reached some of those, or do you feel like it's the part of the process? Because you say in the film, I'm trying to figure out who you are.
Right.
Obviously, making a movie isn't the end all of anything, but especially the editing process, right? If you were editing this, you're watching yourself through all of your sets. You're watching yourself answer hard questions. You're listening to Juli ask you tough stuff, and you have to decide whether or not you like it or not, right?
Right.
I have problems when I shoot myself like talking about a TV show for a 5-minute YouTube video. So, yeah. Do you feel like you've kind of progressed in what you're trying to figure out? Like,
yeah, there was definitely there was a transformation. I think I definitely built a lot of confidence just in performing on stage. I think even after 6 months, I didn't really feel that self-aware on stage, unless I was eating shit. Then I'd be like, oh my god, I wish I could turn invisible. But the editing was interesting because as I edited it, I did feel more comfortable just seeing myself every night, like shuttling through footage and listening to my voice, like all these things where like I'm usually so uncomfortable experiencing, whereas like I kind of just warm myself down. And I think there was just something of like, oh, if I cut this here and I cut that there, then it looks like a film, and that's okay. It doesn't just look like a weird home movie, like a weird midlife crisis kind of thing. So I did feel more comfortable watching myself. But that being said, I also have the god power of cutting out anything that was like, that goes too far, or that's that puts me in a light I don't really want to be shown in. So there's it's not completely objective in that regard. Like I get to kind of decide, like, this, the film is, this is how I want to present myself, right?
Yeah. Juli, what would you say was because I'm sure like this is a project that took was over the span of a few years, so it's not like day in day out you were working on this, but like, was there anything that you found like what was the biggest challenge, and then what did you learn about Chris by working on this?
Wow.
Those are two big questions.
Yeah, definitely. I think, to me, the film is Chris facing his fears. That, to me, is what this film was about. From the beginning, you work with him at, he's, in general, a quiet guy. He's not like a party or whatever. At least he wasn't when I met him in Bitter Melon. And then when I got to know him, one of the biggest things that he had in his head was, I don't like to talk in front of people. And what does he do? He stands in front of people, and it's trying to make them laugh. And at the beginning, nobody laughs, so it's super tough. So, I mean, I saw Chris growing, definitely, like, and feeling a lot more comfortable and comfortable with himself and confident about himself. And and fuck, I mean, it's amazing. He stand up and did it. I could never do it. First of all, I don't even like to do this. That's why I'm behind cameras. I'm not in front of cameras. But so that's part. And then there's a family man, man. Like he would die for his family completely. Like you could, in everything he does, the family is number one. And his kids are probably number two reason why he made this movie. He wants to become a better person. He wants to be able to face his fears so he can show that to his kids. He can be a better father. And I think those two things, I definitely didn't know at all about Chris before I started doing this. And yeah, that's what, yeah. And he's funny sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sorry.
How did you guys get Helen Hong and Irene to? I recognize Helen Hong from Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And I had to look her up. It's like I've seen her before, but is it just the community or something?
I honestly just DM'd her on Twitter, which I'm not trying to tell anyone that they should DM her on Twitter and ask her things, but I just started looking. I kind of look at like, who do I know, and then branching out on Twitter of like, who are the comedians, and who are the comedians that Asian comedians that I've heard of, and then looking at their followers and saying, the branches, and just kind of like swinging around saying like, who do I think we can get? But I just DM'd her and I told her what we were doing, and she was very open, and she just happened to say, I'm going to be in San Francisco this weekend, and I'll have a couple hours in the morning, and you can interview me. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And honestly, from that interview, she gave me a couple other names. One of them was Irene, too. So I kind of said, at that point, I was like, hey, Helen Hong said I could contact you about an interview. So that's honestly how I met both of those comedians and was able to interview them. So I felt very lucky to get, those two working comedians, who they kind of they punch up the film a little bit more, they elevate it.
Well, it seemed like you guys were longtime friends.
That's good. That's good. I think it's just, maybe the Korean thing. I don't know.
They were super nice.
Yeah.
On everything, they were super open and they totally understood you, I felt.
There was a conversation you had with, were you at a radio station? Was that a radio show or something?
Yeah, Mutiny Radio. I was, kind of doing their podcasts.
Yeah, and I think the topic of this one point was the San Francisco scene, or staying in San Francisco and being in other places and whatnot, which is, when I lived in San Francisco, was definitely like a thing that people from all creative like walks that I would meet would talk about, like San Francisco versus maybe going to LA or New York or something like that.
Right.
I mean, obviously, like, and I remember, like, because Ali Wong was around when I was around, like I knew her for a while, and she went to New York, I think, and then she went to LA, and now she's Ali Wong with capital A. And but like, what is your take on kind of being a creative person in San Francisco now, right? San Francisco's changed a lot since I lived there back in the mid-aughts, right? Or like early aughts. But, do you feel like it's easy to grow? Do you feel like it's a great like starting point for someone? Or do you feel like, I mean, if, you want to test your chops against the best, you gotta get out of Dodge, you gotta go.
I wouldn't, I mean, I have such limited exposure to this world of comedy. Like I was a tourist in Bay Area comedy. You know, I at the end of the day, I when I look back on my interactions with the community, I really do. I mean, I wouldn't say I felt like a poser, but I did feel like a tourist. That being said, like yeah, San Francisco. I mean, there's so many mics. They close mics, and then the next week another mic will open. You know, there's mics in every part of the city and the Bay Area. You know, you have a lot of options, and depending on like what your style is, what your scene is, you can go. You can find the mic that works for you, where you can grow and develop your stuff and work with like the host, and, you know, and just figure things out. You can start your own mic. It's not that difficult, and that was something I looked into, but you know, I never followed up on. But you know, as Pam puts it in the film, like if you want to be famous, you got to get out of San Francisco, because you're not gonna make a name for yourself in San Francisco. You have to move to New York or LA if you want to be on TV. You know, if you want to get that Ali Wong money. But yeah, I mean, Ali Wong and so many other names, like they all were Bay Area comedians. And they decided, you know, I've gone as far as I can here. I gotta try other cities. And frankly, to be a famous comedian, you definitely had to have worked in other cities and worked the other markets, because what works in San Francisco does not work in New York or does not work in LA. They're just very different scenes. And I'm not trying to compartmentalize and saying like only you have to stay in your lane, but it's just like you have to experience like the LA crowd, the New York crowd, the Bay Area crowd, and figure out which material works where for your audience. I mean, this is why so many comedians, you know, tour, because the whole point of the tour is to figure out, are my jokes funny across the country? Are my jokes funny across the world? You know, and at the point where you're selling tickets to shows in, you know, Kansas and the Midwest and also, you know, West and East Coast, then you're probably doing pretty well for yourself if you're drawing a crowd no matter where you go.
What do you want the viewers to take away from this?
What do I want them to take away? I mean, I honestly, I still stick by the thesis of the film, is that I do want people who are watching the film thinking, I could be a comedian. I do want people to watch the film and process, like, am I willing to experience what he went through? Am I tough? You know, do I have thicker skin than he does? Probably. You know, but just get a sense of like, this is what it's like, you know, within this framework. Because again, I obviously have a very specific lens through which I'm experiencing this, but I do, you know, there's a part where I wanted to feel broad of like, you know, if you sit on the couch and you're watching Patton Oswalt and you think you're funnier than him, go to an open mic and prove it. You know, because that's an insane thing to think, but it's also, maybe you are funnier than Patton Oswalt, and we'll never know unless you actually start going to mics and try and put the time in. And that being said, when it comes to time, like, you know, when we were doing these mics, like, you're working 20 minutes a day. You go to the mic and you're like writing notes and you're reviewing your set. But, you know, you really have to be putting a lot more time, I think, to really grow and accelerate yourself as a comedian. If you're working your job all day long, and then you're after work, you go to the bar and you do an open mic and you're rattling off just things you've thought of during the day, that's a nice place to start. But you really have to just start switching over to like, I'm putting in time on doing comedy. I'm putting in time on writing and developing and learning and listening to other comedians and figuring out, you know, just cadence is important, you know, and how you deliver it, how you present yourself.
Do you have any, I guess, like, what was your worst heckler? Have you had one?
I never got heckled. I mean, as you see in the film, like I did like die on stage several times where I just like would forget where I was, and being so green of not knowing like how to roll with, oh, I forgot my next line. Can I just transition to crowd work or just make it funny, or, you know, roll into something else? I was just like, oh, I don't remember my routine and I can't do anything else unless I get through the set, you know, like such a naive, you know, junior thing to experience. Right. But, you know, that being said, like it is the testament of fire, you know, like you're going to go through that. You're going to have to experience that and figure it out.
Those were all very noble deaths.
it's, I hesitated to put that in the film, but I realized we really need to see at least one like major, just dead, silent bomb.
Oh yeah, man. Those are. I thought those were like super effective. I mean, they're very like we've all been there with something in our lives where it just doesn't go. Are you officially done? Are you done with like stand up? Are you hanging up the golden mic?
I've hung it up for now because I have a 4-month-old baby that I'm responsible for.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
I had no idea. Like yeah. You don't tweet about that.
No, I try to keep my kids off Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But you do want to get back to it at some point.
comedy, I don't know if I'll get back to comedy. I think I'd like to find another way to express those ideas, and whether it's like through sketches or pre-taped things, similar to what other people have figured out. I don't know if me performing it myself on a live stage is the best route for me. But I would I'm not going to say I will never ever do comedy again, because maybe in 4 or 5 years when the kid's older, then maybe it's like I'll try it, or at least have figured out something that I don't already know. But right now, like I've honestly just post finishing the film, I try to carry that energy into, I need to write some screenplay. I need to write, because I do try to write screenplays, and I try to come up with ideas and stories. And I've, since about, I don't know, March, it's been a bit difficult to write and be creative, but I'm still struggling and trying to get it out there. So hopefully I'll have like some polished screenplays in a couple of years. I don't know, or maybe next year, but they're coming. They're trickling out right now. It's a bit overwhelming watching the world burn.
Yeah, that's it's burning outside right now.
It's literally.
So you talk in the film about, like being a Korean adoptee is a big part of your identity, your experience that you're trying to figure out. How does that experience inform this film? Like, how was it something that you were like, I want to like talk about being a Korean adoptee, or is it something where it's just like, that's just kind of part of who you are? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
This is me, but this is me doing comedy, as opposed to this is me sorting out my identity, or you know what I mean, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think when we first started, it wasn't at the forefront of what the film was going to be about. There was a very natural progression of like beginning to talk about my identity on stage and off stage. I always knew that would have to come up in the film, of course. So there was kind of the sense of like touching on it every time we would sit down and film. But I never planned for like, I'm going to start writing jokes about being, I'm so white and being adopted. Like that just happened over the course of trying to write jokes and feel, how I felt in the moment of like, I keep going on stage. People don't know my name. They get confused when they say Chris Hollstein and then I walk on stage. So let me just address it, because you go to a mic and someone says Chris Hollstein, and then I walk on stage. There's always these questions of like, why does he have a German last name? Why does he not have an accent? Dumb shit that people probably, think or have to experience. And my whole life has been, I meet somebody, I have to immediately explain that I have a German last name because I'm adopted, because they always ask. And so there's this experiential thing of like, how do I convey that experience on as a joke? But then, being an adoptee, your entire life is about acceptance and rejection, and trying to find a balance between that, and not feeling like every single person you ever meet will reject you, before you give them a chance to accept you. So doing the film about performing comedy and seeking validation and seeking acceptance just felt like, as Juli said, like it's kind of about addressing your fears of like, can you get over this? Maybe that's a gateway to getting over being adopted, as much as you can, not making it, this thing that hangs over your entire life.
Do you think, there's it's a common belief, which is almost like a truism at this point, that funny people, comedians, are inherently like sad. That like uh,
Yeah.
Lord knows I can go to dark places, and in your experience talking to and hanging out with other comedians and studying comedians that you may not even know,
Yeah.
do you see the draw? Do you find that to be true, just empirically, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more. I think there's more truth to that than there'd be exceptions. I think most of the people I met while I was performing, and obviously including myself, like we just have this sense of like not accepting ourselves, and so we're seeking that acceptance from an audience, or we're lacking in so many other qualities that we're hoping that laughter, will be our way into being accepted by people. We didn't go into it too much in the film, but yeah, I come from a background of having depression and just hating myself. I don't know if I ever actually say that in the film. So,
You do mention the depression.
yeah.
I don't know if the phrase "hating myself."
I don't think I say I hate myself, but these days I kind of just rolls off the tongue. I think it's just an easier way to get to what's going on. But then I also have to follow up with the people telling me not to hate myself, which is always fun. So
Did this film make you hate yourself less, or did it? No, honestly, right? Like, is it because the film and also doing like the comedy stuff, right? Because it's all part and parcel of, you're looking to fill a need, right?
it's complicated. I don't think I hate myself any less, but I do feel glad that I accomplished something, and that boosts self-esteem, and that gives me confidence that I can make a film, that I can do certain things that I didn't know I could do before. But that hating yourself goes so much deeper than just like, I accomplished something. I got out of bed today. I did the dishes. Those are symptomatic of depression, or like, there are days where I'll lay on the couch and just kind of give up. So it's not something that I think doing this solves. I need therapy. I need figure it out on a much deeper level than performing a function and saying, oh, I don't hate myself anymore.
I know your older kid, Bruce.
Yeah.
He's probably not. Well, when he finally does watch this movie, what are you gonna watch it with him? Are you?
No.
Are you gonna?
No.
Yeah. Have you thought about that during? I mean, I'm sure you have, because he's like there, and you're like editing this. You're like, one day he's gonna watch this.
Yeah. No, he's aware that it exists. He's asked about watching Bitter Melon, which we said no. But I would be editing, and I'd have Premiere open, and it'd be like just me, and then like maybe my wife Samantha, but he'd walk in and be like, "What are you doing on the computer?" So at some point I will show him the film, probably not for another decade, when he can comprehend what he's saying, and maybe not hate me for what I put in the film, but yeah, I mean. There was a part of it where it's like I wanted to create something that he could view in hindsight and understand, what's wrong with his father.
Because right now, his impression is like, wow, Dad's always on the computer screen. He must really gain and love himself so much.
Yeah, that's must be his impression.
Very kind of straight line thinking.
His impression of me right now is that I'm not a very good father, because I wouldn't let him eat a whole can of Pringles.
Wow. Yeah, he's gonna be thankful for that when he doesn't have hypertension. Yeah. No, man, but like I enjoyed the film. Like it was really cut well together. You know, it flowed. Obviously, I know you, so I was like, oh, what's he doing here? You know, it's
Yeah.
first of all, congrats on getting it done. I mean, we all say we're gonna do something, and sometimes we do. Most of the time, we don't.
Yeah, most of the time you're not finishing something. Correct. Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you or
Good question.
all that good stuff? Both of you.
Julie, where can people find out more about you?
Not really. I am DB, and I haven't updated my Vimeo account in 5 years. So this is the.
But where's your reel though? If people are like, hey, I really like the way that film was shot.
Thank you.
Where's your reel?
There is no reel. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Well, your reel is
But it will be. It'll be probably next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, your reel is Bitter Melon, and this is your laugh. So. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I put both trailers. I actually no. I need This Is Your Life trailer on Vimeo under my. Yeah.
And Julie, you got to tell people where to follow your comedy tour. You have several.
Well, it's probably going to be in Catalan, so I don't.
Hey, very very humorous language.
Oh yeah.
Chris,
how about you, Patrick?
Oh no, Chris, where this?
I like this very polite. Like, you promote yourself. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Mangy Asian Man. It's a little kind of a pun. It also works. The film itself has its own Twitter account for some reason, and that unfortunately is This Is Your Laugh on Twitter, but it's not an H at the end of laugh. It's the number 1. So that's really fun for people to find. This is your lag 1. Some asshole took This Is Your Laugh. But it's easier if you just go to the website, thisisyourlaughfilm.com, where we've done that thing where you can see the Twitter feed there and just follow it there. But I've been trying to blog about the film to kind of just provide more information from people who've seen it. So I've been doing some regular updates about, like, I did updates about editing, and now we're kind of talking about what's in the film now that people can see it. So we talked about Julie, we talked about the comedian, talked about the music, and I'll be talking about more over the next couple weeks. So thisisyourlaughfilm.com. But if you really want to, hear more from like me and my dumb perspective on the world, it's Mangy Asian Man.
Way to sell it.
It works because it's a parody account, so I haven't been sued.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on a great film, and I love watching it. I'm really looking forward to hearing what other people have to say about it.
I am too.
It's again, I feel like I know you so much better.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
Me too.
Y'all.
After a year and a half of going to his house and following him around, yeah, definitely. I don't think that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
what about Patrick Epino?
Oh,
where can they find you?
Where can we see your work?
Oh, you can go to patrickepino.com and find out about me. You can follow me on Twitter, Patrick Epino. And you can check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/National Film Society. It's been latent for a while, but I'm picking it up again. And it's because, I'm at home all day. I'm at home. I got a camera. I got a plant.
Nice.
That's great.
It's my sidekick. That's my ethnic man. I dated myself just there.
So for those at home watching, there's a shirt that I wear in the film. It says "Awesome Asian Bad Guys." That's actually Patrick's shirt. He has a film called "Awesome Asian Bad Guys," which I love. So if you love the shirt, watch the film, and you'll see Patrick in a very flattering jumpsuit.
That thing, the zipper broke on that, so I have.
Oh man!
maybe I just, ugh.
Yeah.
Is this still this is your laugh Q&A, or did I go to a different room?
It's fine.
Have I lost control of this Q&A?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to This Is Your Laugh, the Q&A with Chris Hollstein.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, man.
Bye, everybody.
Juli, Lopez. Be sure to check it out and check them out and tell your friends to watch it.